Well, hello everyone. My name is Dr. Aaron Moreland, and I am the owner and one of the practitioners at Vallejo Health and Wellness Center. And I have Dr. John Toftoy.
Toftoy.
Toftoy. Yeah, get it right. Dr. John Toftoy with us during this video because I really want to spend some time talking to Dr. John and just getting to know him better, to understand what his passion is for cycling and how that ties into him being a doctor, and how beneficial it is to people that are looking to ride bikes, to be able to get that expertise of a past professional bike rider, right?
Yeah.
And then also a doctor of chiropractic who really understands the body. So let's just jump right into it.
Yeah.
So Dr. John, tell us a little bit about, like, how did you even get into bicycling? You grew up out in Illinois, I think.
Yep,
it is.
exactly.
Yeah,
so grew up on a farm about 60 miles west of Chicago.
Yep.
And that was basketball country. So
Okay.
think Hoosiers.
Yep.
In Midwest basketball. Cycling was not a thing. We rode our bikes, but it was just to get around. And so basketball and baseball through high school. I wasn't going to get a scholarship to play basketball in college. And so in college, I just sort of focused on studies, studied economics, got a job at an investment bank downtown Chicago.
Okay.
So I moved downtown, thought I was the coolest at 21, had a sweet loft, working a lot of hours and traveling almost full time exclusively, to where I put on a lot of weight. Okay. So from where I am today, I was 60 pounds heavier, and this is at 22, 23.
But not 60 pounds of solid muscle, 60 pounds of unhealthy
some
weight.
extra stuff, that's right. I mean, I did lift weights in college without playing sports, and so maybe a little combination of both. But compared to even race weight cycling, I was 75 pounds heavier, which is just a lot. So I was unhealthy, didn't have much energy, started not liking what I was doing, just didn't feel like I was on the right trajectory.
Sure.
I wasn't, my life didn't look like I imagined it.
Yeah.
And so I actually saw, I believe it was a Gatorade commercial, where there was a triathlete named Chris Lee at the Ironman Championships in Hawaii.
Okay.
And he is staggering at the finish line. He can't finish the run. He's really out of it. And he actually collapses multiple times, doesn't end up finishing the race. So he's in first place.
Okay.
Stops 50 meters from the finish line and couldn't finish. So extreme dehydration. Actually ended up killing some of his large intestine off, to where it's messed him up afterwards. He actually did come back to racing, but so I watched it again recently, and I thought, man, what is wrong with all these people watching this guy just deteriorate into nothing, and everyone's cheering him, keep going. And he's vomiting all over, nobody's stopping him. But when I saw that 20 years ago, I thought, oh, well, that's so cool, I want to do that.
Sure.
And so that sort of set in me a desire to challenge my body. So I started running, biking, swimming. I actually remember the first time I ran a 5K, so 3 miles. Hadn't run that far in high school. You know, maybe we did a couple miles for conditioning, but
sure.
I remember calling my dad, I just ran 3 miles at once. And to me, this was the biggest deal.
So it really wasn't just biking then, it was the triathlon.
It was not biking at all. Yep, not at all. Now with triathlon, I knew there was a bike component. And so I actually got a bike. It was a Trek 1000, probably set me back $200.
Okay.
Secondhand. So pretty entry level road bike, but it was a Trek at the time. Lance Armstrong was winning Tour de France. He was on ESPN, more mainstream. Before that, cycling, there was Greg LeMond in the US. There was some notoriety, popularity, but it wasn't popular until Lance. And stuff.
And so he was riding a Trek? Is that
he was riding a Trek, and I was like, well, I gotta get this. And then I got his jersey with the US Postal Service. Now granted, I wore basketball shorts. And I kept the reflectors on my bike. I didn't know what I was doing. I couldn't clip in and out, so I just had basketball shoes. I was just pedaling. So long story short, 2005, I was working in Arizona, and I did the Ironman Arizona in 2005.
Okay.
So I had learned to swim. I swam, but not for exercise.
Sure.
Started biking, got a bike. I'd run before. That one's obvious, but I trained. So I completed the Ironman in 2005, and I realized I thought it was the biggest accomplishment. I did it. I lost all the weight for one.
Yeah.
I was lighter than I was in high school. For endurance sports, makes a really big difference.
Yeah.
Felt great, but I was not a good swimmer.
Okay.
And so the people, we get to start together, the pros go first and then us age groupers. And I lost 10, 15 minutes to the guys in 2.5 miles of swimming. But in the bike, I was relatively competitive. And this is not trained. The run, I was average, just very average. And I barely survived. There was walking.
So you really noticed that, hey, the bike portion, I'm excelling here.
Yes.
Swimming, I'm not good at it.
Yep.
I'm not enjoying it probably.
No
I know
way.
I trained for a triathlon a few years ago. I remember bringing a friend of mine that was an Ironman triathlete, and he's like, yeah, if your feet are dragging at the bottom of the pool, that's a bad thing. And so I obviously, I'm not a good swimmer either. And then the running was okay. And so did that from there say, hey, maybe I should just focus on cycling?
Well, you would think, but of course, no. My brain's going. Otherwise, I'm like, I can be faster.
Yeah.
I need to get faster at swimming and running. So I focused on that. The next year, I did one in Madison. The following year, one in Madison. And some smaller ones.
So again, did you never do like a triathlon? You just jumped into an Ironman triathlon?
It's a good question. No, so I did some smaller ones.
Okay.
Yep, I definitely did. I remember there was one in Chicago, an Olympic distance, so a lot shorter distances. Mrs. T's triathlon, I remember, was sponsored by a pierogi maker.
Yeah.
So I was eating the pierogies thinking this is good food. I didn't know anything. Actually, they probably were good food for a few. It wasn't until I decided also to make a change in my career.
Sure.
And so at the same time, I was still working, traveling full time, but I would go to Lifetime and swim wherever it was. I'd jump in just community pools. I'd run in the middle of the night. So I remember I used to wake up. I was in New York at the time, so staying in Manhattan, and I'd wake up early. Everyone starts work late. Run in Central Park. I just had routine down where I felt like, all right, I'm thriving, but still I was not fulfilled. I felt like work was getting in the way of me pursuing these passions.
Sure.
And I think all of us have this wildness at heart, or feel like, if we can pursue adventures, that fills some of those voids that we have. So I decided to make a change in my career.
Yeah.
It was time either I was going to go back to business school or do something different.
Okay.
I went through a process where I thought, hey, what are some gifts and talents that I have? What do I like doing? And I liked training for triathlons. I liked getting healthy. I felt like it was easy to lose weight, and I can help other people do that too.
Yeah.
So what would that look like as a career? I thought, well, I could just be a professional triathlete, maybe. But I knew in my mind I was never gonna swim as fast as these guys. I might be able to run close to, but not after swimming and biking. And so I'd been helped by a chiropractor growing up. We were very natural healthcare as a family. Growing up on a farm, I think, is a pretty common thing. And so I decided to go back to chiropractic school. I was dating a girl at the time who had moved to Minnesota.
There's always a girl.
And she's my wife now, so it worked out. And they had a school in Bloomington, Minnesota. So I said, you know what, 2007 in the fall, I'm moving up and starting chiropractic school. So
very cool.
So chiropractic school, I got plugged into a cycling community here. Back in the late 2000s, cycling was big in Minnesota. So local road racing scene. I signed up for time trials. So that's where you ride by yourself, think triathlon.
Okay.
I thought, hey, I'm gonna go and practice because I'm still a triathlete.
Sure.
And that's where I met cyclists. And they're like, hey, you don't have to swim and run. You can just ride your bike.
Sure. Yeah.
And that started the process where I learned more. You don't know how much you don't know until you're around people who are more experienced. I was really fortunate enough to meet some veterans who sort of took me under their wing, invited me to ride with them, showed me what they do, how they take care of their bike, introduced me to people in the industry, and then you just start learning a little more.
Yeah.
I started getting on websites, Cycling News and Velo News. So I read about what people are doing. I followed pro cycling. So I dove all in. Like this became central focus, a little schooling, and focused on cycling. And from there, just entered road races, and then depending on how many races you do and how well you do in them, you get upgraded to different categories. To there when you're doing bigger races against faster people, and eventually you reach the top where then you're competing against guys who get paid to race their bikes. So that was kind of my experience.
So when you look at your path to cycling, it really was, hey, I enjoy cycling, but not just enjoy it. I'm gonna start be very competitive at it.
Yes.
Now, if you look at most people, that's not the path they're gonna take. Now, that being said, so you've gotten me more into cycling. So, and it's interesting because I grew up on a farm too, and I had a bicycle that was really just a mode of transportation. Like if I wanted to go visit a friend a few miles down the road, I'd get on my bicycle. And that's really the only reason I would ride a bicycle. It wasn't for fun. I don't know if is that something that when you were a kid, you probably rode a bicycle, but I'm guessing it wasn't
It wasn't, no, it wasn't for exercise, that's for sure. But my family was big on getting outside.
Yeah.
We do family bike rides, and as I'm doing the mileage now, we take 5-mile bike rides.
Sure.
When I'm 8, 9 years old. So we definitely rode, but it was more, hey, we're gonna go to our cousin's house.
Yeah, and at the time, I'm guessing there wasn't a lot of cycling races for just the everyday person.
No, BMX racing was a thing, but not where I was.
Yeah,
so,
not necessarily. I mean, you had Lance Armstrong kind of inspiring people, but again, there wasn't near the races just for, hey, on a weekend I want to go for a race. Mountain biking was definitely not as big as it is today. And so you look at the average person, they're probably not going to go down that same path as you, but at the same time, and myself included, I don't want to get out there so we can do these races now. We can do them as just a fun thing to do on a weekend. Plus, it's nice to have this thing to shoot for, right? Hey, I'm going to do a race in
need a challenge.
We got the Lutsen
99.
99er. I did the Schwamigan race with you. There's other, probably other races that are road bike races around, or even just group rides that people will do. But you want to be, at the same time, there's still that competitiveness. There's still that, I don't want to just go out there and ride necessarily for fun. I'm doing it for exercise, and I want to be good at it. And if I'm going to go on a race, I want to, compete well. So when you look at that, then, and that's really one of the reasons why we're going to be shooting all these videos, is we want to help the average person that may not be looking at, hey, I'm going to dedicate the time and the efforts that Dr. John did to become professional, but is there some tricks that he had that were that I could apply into my everyday cycling? So when I do that weekend race,
I've made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, so
you don't have to make those same ones.
Yeah, so then that's what's so cool about living by your own experience, but also getting to be able to benefit from your mistakes and not always making the same mistakes. And so there's a lot of things, right? When you look at what kind of, I know for me, when I first started, I didn't know what kind of bike should I get? Should I be riding a road bike? Should I go a mountain bike? Should I do more of I don't know if they call it cyclocross or if you call it, what do I do there? I don't know the sizes. They're asking me what's my inseam, all this stuff that it's just and language I'm not familiar with. And so you had mentioned that there was some cyclists you started hanging out with. Would you say that's where you gained a lot of your knowledge from?
Yeah, absolutely. Other people who were more experienced than me.
Yeah.
So there's people who've been racing for 40 years, people that raced in Europe. So it was bigger in Europe before it was bigger in the US.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to race, hey, I got to go to Belgium in the summer. I go to France and race a little bit. And you learn etiquette. You learn how to ride in a group. You learn how to take care of your bike. You learn what to do for your body, because, hey, we know about the body, but then when you push it in one specific arena, all of a sudden, why is this happening? Whereas they've sort of done it. Now, a lot of the cycling things are more old school, or at least that's how I learned it, more traditions, or if you would say less medical, more wise tale, like, oh, you know, you can't shave the morning before a big race because your body it uses energy to grow back.
When you say shaving your
face
okay.
or legs or anything. Oh no,
yeah.
you're going to shave a couple days before.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're losing energy because in order to regrow that hair, all of a sudden you won't have it.
Yeah,
that doesn't make any sense.
So definitely one thing I've seen is that it's like the cycling world. Like I've never been a part of it. I've been really big into martial arts. I've been big into bodybuilding, weightlifting type of stuff. So we've kind of picked up the etiquette to some degree with that. There's probably more so in cycling. It seems like there's like a whole outfit that like. Yeah. People are showing up. It's like, okay, I show up in a pair of basketball shorts and t-shirt, and people look at you like, what's wrong with this guy? That kind of thing. So those are things that are interesting. So definitely during some of these videos, we'll talk about that. But the big question, I guess, then that I have as someone that's, you know, just getting into it and stuff, like, is it really, does it matter? Does it matter, you know, does it matter what kind of bike I ride? Like I've always said to people, like, okay, well, why would I'm doing it for exercise? So why wouldn't I want a heavier bike actually? Because that's gonna make me work harder, and I'll actually get more bang for my buck when I am out exercising. Or do I really need to, you know, show up with these bright colored clothes? And what's wrong with riding without my shirt on? What's so stuff like that. And so it is stuff that. Again, does it really matter to know these extra tidbits of training?
Yep. You know what I say is this stuff doesn't matter. But what matters is you will ride your bike more if it's more fun.
Sure.
And so there's reasons why everyone does all these little things. There's reasons why they wear the padded shorts. You know, and you can think of obvious reasons. There's reasons why you don't wear baggy clothing. It makes you faster, less wind resistance. You're not going to get sores on your bottom.
It's interesting because you and me went for a ride just recently, and I wore bike shorts, but then I wore shorts over top of them. And as I was riding, I kept finding my shorts kind of catching, like just as I was trying to pedal, and I was like, it was super annoying. And then that's when you said, yeah, you're done wearing shorts over top of your bike shorts. And so it is interesting. Again, when I would look at people like that before, I would just look at like, come on, you really need to dress like that?
I don't need to see that. What are we doing? There's always a reason, but you find the balance. Now it does come full circle. So now, say I'm going to go out riding, I might just wear a basketball jersey and some baggy shorts, and I don't mind it. So you don't know anything and you wear it that way, and then you get better and you kind of dress like everybody else because there is a reason for it. And then you get better and you start dressing casual again to kind of be like, oh, you know, no big deal.
So then when you look at some of the other stuff that gear and such, because we've obviously had this conversation too, is okay, pedals. And again, we'll be shooting specific videos about this, but just the idea of do I need to have clip-ins? Do I need to like what kind of shoes should I be wearing? Should I buy a pedal with a cage on it? Should I buy a clip-in pedal? Again, you look at, does this really matter? And definitely, like you said, it needs to be fun. But I also find that once I got going, and especially doing that Schwamigan race, it was like, okay, this makes me mad. Like, so I'm riding this bike that my wife bought me for a birthday. Very expensive bike. What do you call it? Carbon?
Carbon fiber, full suspension.
So I'm riding that, and this guy's riding beside me, and he's riding so again, wheel size. So what, 29 inch?
Yeah, we get 29.
So he's got 26 inch tires. He's riding a steel frame bike, like kind of like you buy at Target. He's got like a thing on the back where he's got a bag on it. He's riding with sandals on, and it's like a really muddy race, and he's riding beside me, and I'm like, okay, this is bothering me a lot. And he's stopping and picking up garbage along the way. and he's still riding beside me. I'm like, this is not where I should be right now, because I feel like I'm in pretty good shape. So I think that it does matter too, that like, what could I do to get myself in better shape? And I want to compete. I don't want to just like ride that race just because I'm in a race. Like I could ride that any day. And so it's nice to have that competition and such. So when you as we look at the benefits of that expertise that you have as a biker, I mean, that's huge. I think that it's helped me significantly. And so I really have appreciated that. And the nice thing that I saw, I hadn't been a part of your world before. I got to get a little glimpse of it when I did that Schwamigan race. But what I really noticed was, hey, there's like a whole bunch of people at the finish line that I met that like, oh, you know Dr. John? I know Dr. John. And then, but not only do they know you, they were all saying, oh, he's giving me some really good tips, tips I use today, tips I've used in the past. And so I just thought about, you know, that expertise, that knowledge has helped me. It could help so many other people. So that's why I think these videos are going to be just really helpful for people as they get into biking. Most of these people watching these videos are not going to be people that are going to be professional cyclists. But again, I think that they're a lot like me. That's one thing I noticed was that a lot of the people were in that 30 to maybe even 70. But I would say the majority of people were 30 to 60 years old. It's not just a pastime for them anymore. It's a pastime plus. It's fun. It's like we're in a whole
it's a
community. Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And so I really enjoyed that and just saw like, okay, how do we get this information to more people? Because I think a lot more people would enjoy biking.
Yeah,
it helped me.
Hey, that's the only reason I'm doing. You know, I'm not a video maker. You know, not yet really do a lot of putting myself out there, but I would love to help as many people as we can.
So I think that as we make the videos and help people to just make cycling a fun thing and a nice pastime, and also be part of that community. The other thing though that I do know you from in a much bigger way would be your professional career. You had mentioned you chose to be a chiropractor. Just from the experience you had, and then at the same time knowing that it would be a better life balance, it would be better for your family when you get married and have kids, that being able to have a career where I'm at home at night and such versus what you were doing. And so then I've gotten to see your expertise as a chiropractor and your passion for it, and so I've gotten to see too how that benefits our patients. So tell me this though, how is that beneficial that you're a chiropractor and in the cycling world? What do you bring that, like, if you're watching, because you can Google or you know, search on YouTube, there's lots of different experts out there talking about bicycling and such. How is that knowledge from a chiropractor, how is that going to be like really set you apart from the average you know, these other videos that are out there? What makes you what bringing that chiropractic in, how does that help?
I think it's huge. And I'm a firm believer that everyone should learn anatomy. You should know the human body because we're all humans. And so that's one thing at chiropractic school we spend more time on, because we don't spend any time on not much on pharmacology or different procedures. We're just about hands-on, learning about the body, different tissue, what that feels like, how it moves, what inputs change when you introduce a stimulus, what does the body do to react to it. And that's really what training's all about. You introduce stress and you want to induce a response in the body. And then you see side effects of it. Some are good, hey, I'm faster and fitter. Some are bad, muscles get tighter. You see different patterns. So you can see that cyclists have similar patterns, tight hip flexors, we're tight up here, we're hunched over, but it's individual. So everybody's body's different because you bring past experiences. I've got old injuries, broken collarbone twice here, once over here. My shoulders and shoulder blades are going to respond differently than someone who hadn't had that experience. So I think it's more being able to parse through things that are just kind of fluff. You know, there's a lot of gimmicks out there when it deals with health and training. And then there's things that are good but aren't necessary for everybody. So I can kind of help. Same with the bike equipment is you cut through, hey, what's your biggest bang for your buck? And then how do I get to where my goal is quicker? So, hey, it's great for you to do this extra stuff and go and get this stretching done. hey, is there a way, should I be stretching before or after? Does it matter? Do I have to do both?
Do I have to do it at all?
Do I have to do it at
'Cause I
all?
hate stretching.
Yeah, it depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
I've got my opinions and I'd argue them.
Yeah.
There's professional cyclists that say, oh, I'd rather my hip flexors be as tight as possible because they're like
Kind of that
rubber
rubber band,
bands.
yeah,
I can get going faster.
Yeah.
Hey, you could argue that, but that's probably why your knees hurt too. So
Yeah.
I would say the expertise is just in knowing the body.
Yeah.
And then like chemistry wise and physiologically, knowing what added stressors will do to your body.
Sure.
And what those stresses are from training on a bike.
Yeah, and I think that the other thing you would see a lot of is most people that are wanting to get better at a bike need to be training on a bike, right?
Yeah.
Like we all have probably heard that it is good to cross train, and I think that is an important thing. You should be doing other type of activity, whether it be strength training, whether it be some stretching, yoga. Your wife is a holy yoga instructor, and so that definitely instills some of that. Hey, I need to be working on my flexibility as well. But with cycling, again, you really have to put your time on the bike, and that's definitely one thing I found with that Schwamigan race. Like, hey, if I'm going to be riding on a bike for 2, 3, even 4 hours, is how that race ended up being, just because of all the mud. I've never sat. I probably had never sat anywhere in my life, except for when you're driving on a long car ride. And so, in those seats are not
they can be unforgiving if you're not used to them.
And so, you do have to spend time on the bike, and so that does create potential for repetitive injuries, potential for overuse syndromes, and so I'm sure that you having that expertise as a cyclist and the expertise as a chiropractor, okay, this is what you could be doing to prevent the overuse, or now you have the overuse, this is how we're going to get rid of the overuse. We'll speak to that.
Yeah, and you can see the early warning signs. I think that's where I help the most.
Yes,
hey, you don't have that issue yet, but man, I can see the imbalance here, and this is what's going to happen if you don't do something different. So it's instilling the value of things they might not want to do.
Yeah.
All right. So, for example, I quit my rides with 15 minutes to do some cool down work. And I stress the core strength. I usually do that before I ride. So most people, I got an hour, I'm going to hammer, and then I'm done and I shower and I got to get either to work or wherever else I'm going, and don't have that value for some of the accessory stuff, like the nutrition component of it, and trying out different nutrition strategies, and then also recovery strategies. Those are the biggest. If you want to train consistently enough to see improvement, you got to work on your recovery.
Yeah, and really, again, that's huge, because if you look at, like I had mentioned, that age group that I saw riding bikes, it's
the middle-aged males in Lycra. We call them mammals.
Yeah, so that's good. I like that. So when you look at when I started to do, say, martial arts or something, I started it in my 20s and actually my late teens, and so I probably didn't have it didn't even cross my mind, like what's the nutrition I need to do and such, because I could just jump into it. And the problem is, I think that a lot of people, when they hit 30, 40, 50, they still think they're 18 years old, 19 years old, and like, hey, I'll just get on that bike, I'll go. And one thing during that race, what I noticed was, man, I am cramping up like I've never cramped before, and pickle juice. I tell you, that was
this is the key.
That was very helpful. I was so grateful that they had that on that. But stuff like that, I would never. When they asked me, "Do you want some pickle juice?" I'm like, "Are you insane? Like, why would I drink pickle juice?" But it was so helpful. So that being said, I didn't know that, and so just having those tips, having those kind of giants to come along beside me and help me, and again, it's been helpful that you've been able to do that. And yes, I think the expertise of really understanding the body, because as a chiropractor myself, I see so many people that come in and either they're coming in because they have an injury, but most of the time, though, that injury wasn't like, oh, I picked something up. It was like, I don't know, this kind of came on gradually, and I don't know where it came from. And then I can look at them and say, I know exactly where it came from, and this didn't start the day that you felt it. This started probably a year or two before you actually felt it.
Yeah, usually I can see what they would look like on a bike without seeing them on a bike, just based on how their body is.
So it'd be nice to have that, because I've had injuries from doing martial arts to football to other sports, those injuries are never fun, and they always set you back. They delay your ability. Like if you're training for a race, I've signed up for this race, and now I don't even know if I can do the race because I'm going to have to do this race without having the training. Yeah. And so I think that it is huge if someone could point out like, hey, your right glute is firing, but your left glute's not, and I can see that it's twisting your pelvis. You have a short leg because of it. You name it, and so. That expertise could really help people to not end up in that injury status, but be able to.
And that's really why I do it. It's not about, and I got into it, not about the performance, not about the stuff. It was always, hey, I want to be able to meet this goal. So I am goal oriented. I want to do that event. Yeah. So I want to do that event, and then I want to finish here in that event, or I want to make this team and be able to do that. Those are what set my passions. Hey, I find out what do you want to do? What's your goals? Yeah. Because that'll change completely how you train, how you approach, and the recommendation I make. Versus if you just want to be healthy, that's usually pretty easy. If you're telling me, oh, well, I want to finish Schwalmingen in under 2.5 hours. All right, that's different than if I want to do that. So.
And I would say that most people that are into it, even if they know I can't compete at the level of the professionals, I still want to compete at a high level with people my own age. I want to compete with, and we're seeing people jump into races that probably only professionals used to do. Like you think of like Leadville. I know you're training for Leadville right now, so you're looking at a 100-mile. You're on a mountain bike, but I don't think it's kind
of not really training for it yet. But thanks for reminding me. I probably should be.
But that being said. That's not going to be an easy race. Yeah. Now you're coming at it from a professional, but there's going to be a bunch of amateurs there that, that's just something they've seen it. I've watched some YouTube videos. It inspires me, and who knows, someday maybe I'll jump on that race as well. But I'm not going to take the approach that I would do it without some kind of expert helping me, because we're talking some pretty significant elevation differences and such. So it is, again, just to kind of wind this down, then, it is really exciting for us to shoot these videos. If I'm the only one that watches them, we hope that more people do, but if I'm the only one, I'm going to
You're going to learn a lot.
Yes, absolutely. And so that it would be helpful that when I'm out there riding, I'm going to be the best I can possibly be, and be more efficient and such. So as we just conclude this video, again, one thing I really just want to encourage anyone that's watching these, that Dr. John brings an expertise from a physical aspect as a chiropractor, but then has this years of cycling that allowed him to compete at a pretty high level as a professional cyclist. And rather than sit there and try to figure it out on your own, because it can get very time consuming, very expensive to do that, and very frustrating, because it's like I had no idea, like, who do I even turn to ask questions about this, because I'd go to a cycle shop and I'm like, okay, I hear what they're saying, but I also know they're trying to sell me a bicycle. Are they really, like, what they're saying to me, is that true? I don't know. And so it was very helpful to be able to talk to Dr. John. So the nice thing is you get that expertise. You're going to have Dr. John teaching you how to look at cycling in a different way, in a way that is going to be really, again, cut that time, save you money, and save you frustration. So we encourage you to watch these different videos that we're going to be creating. Any final words?
No, I think I just passionate about the bike. I would say when I was racing, I was all in, and then for a few years I sort of took a step back, and only recently started riding a little more regularly, and I feel like renewed that passion, and I don't know why I sort of took a step away. I almost looked at it as different careers. Okay, I'm pursuing this, now I'm gonna provide for my family and pursue my professional career, where I think you've done a great job of encouraging me, hey, it's both. This is how you be successful at both. So
Yeah, I
outside
think
body.
marrying the two, like it's not either or, it's both. You can do both, and I think that's what people.
And biking, the best thing. There's like I found out for swimming. I'm never gonna be the fastest swimmer. You got to grow up swimming, have good technique, good body type. But biking, we used to call it a blue collar sport.
Sure.
You put in the time, and that's more what it takes when you're a beginner. You're gonna get better.
Yeah.
And so it's almost predictable results. And then if you're not seeing results, it's because you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And you can fix those, and then everybody gets faster.
Yeah,
So
kind of similar
what I love
to when you look at if you didn't start hockey when you were 3 years old, it's going to be a really tough road. Versus you could pick up sports that just include running, like soccer and stuff. If you know how to run, which most of us don't, most of us have ridden a bicycle. We grew up riding bicycles. We might have been having more fun jumping off of stuff, but now we want to use bicycling as a way to get healthy, to travel. I know lots of people that use it to go into work and such, and then to use it as a great pastime and develop a community.
And it brings back those memories when you're a kid. There's nothing better than being outside, feeling the wind in your face. And if you ask any cyclist, I mean, that's one of the reasons why we do it. And being able to ride with my kids is also, a fun.
Again, I'm very excited. I'm very excited that you're willing to shoot these videos for us, and just looking forward to learning a lot more for myself and then to help others that are in the same situation that I'm in. So thanks, Dr. John.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you.